Welcome in, everybody, to another edition of the Fatboyz Dynasty podcast. Coming at you live. I'm Bo. That is Brant. Being presented by the Fantasy Holics on the podcast network, on YouTube, live with you guys this week. Last week, Brant, we came in, we kind of polished up, the rookie talks. Not to say the rookie talks are over for us this offseason, but a lot of rookie drafts are kind of over to this point. So we're going to start talking some startup stuff, which is always exciting. Brant, you and I are in the midst of doing some startup drafts ourselves. We've got a startup draft, Dynasty Superflex startup draft we're getting ready to do on the page. Again, if you guys want to be a part of that with both of the Fatboyz, as well as 4 other personalities from the Fantasy Holics team, just go and interact, be a top member on the page, and you will get an invite request to be part of said league. So, Brant, I'm excited to get into this Dynasty startup stuff. Draft season is one of the favorite times of the year for me. You can make or break your season you can't necessarily win a league in your draft, but you can sure lose it in a draft.
Yeah, absolutely. And we discussed this earlier about drafting early startups, that an injury could phase you if you're going all in to win the first year, or it could change it. It's a lot when you go into these drafts. You really have to think about how you want to address it, which we'll address here when we get into the actual episode here. But yeah, this is always fun to talk about rankings, get ready for startup. It's always a good time. So as always, let's get our bibs on.
Let's eat. So, Brant, like we alluded to before the break, start discussing some of these startup draft strategies. And there's a lot of different ways you can go with it. In the years past, zero RB has been a thing that's been really fun, that a lot of people have done. I say that's tomfoolery. I know you like to have decent running backs as well. So we thought when we got into this, we would start by talking about the running back rankings for dynasty startups today, because they get no respect in general terms. Everybody's looking for that next shiny wide receiver, the next Justin Jefferson to have in the dynasty league. So we'll do wide receivers next week. This week, we're going to focus on running backs, Brant, and we're going to use the rankings that you and I are part of putting together with, again, some other members of the Fantasy Holics page. You can go see that on the Fantasy Holics website. It's shared on Facebook pretty routinely as well. But we're going to talk about some running backs. Brant, how are you feeling about the running backs as a whole this year?
Absolutely. There's the running backs as a whole. When it comes to a startup, I'm just going to hit this right on the top. If you're not one of the first probably 10 picks, I think you could probably fade the running backs a little bit, because you have a certain few, which we'll discuss here shortly, that are still workhorse backs. But it seems a lot of the NFL teams are going to committees. So if you're not getting one of the workhorse backs, you kind of can almost play the waiting game. So as you guys will notice, there's only a few rookies in these rankings as we go over. But when you go into a startup draft, I want to put this out. We like to talk strategy sometimes. When you go into a startup draft, you got to figure out, am I in it to win it now, or am I in it to really be a contender for multiple years? So you got to have that balance of young and veteran whenever you're in that. Or are you going straight to, I'm going to go youth and just wait a few years before I make my championship run? So you really got to go in on what your strategy is going to be.
And eventually what happens, Brant, is you get to be degenerates like you and I, and we get into hundreds of dynasty leagues, so you can have a little bit of everything. Rebuilds are fun. Contending is fun. Making trades that you wouldn't make in other leagues to try to get better here is fun. You know, it's been one of those things, and here we are. again, if we weren't degenerates falling in love with Dynasty the way we do, we wouldn't be here right now doing this. But again, running backs for me are something I have a strong passion for. I like to acquire a lot of running backs. I feel like they're a position of trade value. And I'm just excited to get into this, Brant. So let's without further ado, let's go ahead and get these rankings on the screen here. All right, here we go. There you guys see the running back rankings from the Fantasy Holics website. Now, obviously, you're not seeing all of the top 10 here. We've got it started at 32, Brant. So we're going to work our way from the bottom to the top. We're going to talk about some of these guys. Again, this is in startup rank form. So some of these big names that you may be like, well, if I play in redrafts, I want that guy a lot higher. Yeah, me too, in a redraft, but not in a dynasty startup, right? So, Brant, before we get started, you got anything you want to add or anything you want to imply here before we jump into this?
Well, I want to add the far column is my rankings, my own personal rankings. The one next to it, to the left of my column, is big Beefin's rankings, and then we have 3 other guys that are part of it in order to make this the consensus rankings. So absolutely, we'll discuss some big discrepancies, and we'll discuss on why. This is always a fun time. So let's get into these. Let's dive into them.
Okay, so let's start with the bottom couple of names here. 32, we've got Austin Eckler leaving the Chargers on his new team with the Commanders. Aaron Jones, also a longtime Packer, now in Minnesota. Devin Singletary is a new team as well in the Giants brand. How are you feeling about those 3 guys? Still some value left for some of those older guys in the tank? Where are you at?
Yeah, so Austin Eckler and Aaron Jones would be great RB2s, I think, for the next two possible years. Eckler, I don't really know what his role is going to be, so he does scare me a little bit. I know I have him at 31. Aaron Jones, I have a little lower just because there are so many extra weapons there in that offense. So I do have him a little lower. Singletary, I have at 37. We have him at 30. I'm just not sure what to think of that backfield right now.
Yeah, so for me, for Singletary, I think he's by far the most talented player in that backfield. I don't see anybody that's an instant threat to his workload. So to start a dynasty draft up, again, this is probably an RB3 for most teams that you're getting here, unless you've got that one crazy guy in the draft that goes like the first 5 rounds are all running backs. Devin Singletary is probably somebody's 3rd back. And again, to start the season with a guy that I think is going to have probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 75% of the snap share in the backfield, that's a pretty darn good way to start it out. You are obviously a little lower than the rest of us there, with you having him at 37. The next lowest is 34. But I digress. Moving on, you've got Nick Chubb at 29, Jalen Warren 28, Zamir White at 27, respectively. So let's start off with this first big discrepancy, not big discrepancy, but 4-spot discrepancy between yourself and myself. I've got Zamir White 2 spots lower at 29 than where we have him. You have him 2 spots higher. So walk me through where you're at with Zamir White.
I like him in the backfield. He did okay when he was by himself. When Jacobs missed some time last year. I like the fact that he's leading that backfield. They didn't add anything in the draft and the running back until the later rounds to really threaten him. Honestly, I'm not even 100% sure if they did draft a back. I know they added. I'd have to go back and look. They added one back during free agency that I don't think will cut into his work a lot. So I just think Zamir White is still that go-to guy there in Vegas. I think he'll give you decent numbers for the foreseeable future. So I do like him there at 25, right outside that RB2 range.
Okay. Again, for me, I'm just not super sold on Zamir White. It's a relatively unknown with what the offense is going to be there. What Minshew and Aiden O'Connell are going to bring to the table on a full-time value there for that team. So I'm just not real sure Zamir White. If Zamir White's the bright spot of that offense, that may mean he's going in stacked boxes, and I'm probably out on that too. So we'll see. I do think there's still plenty of value, though, because of his age, but it is kind of odd to see him down there that far beneath or around the older players, I guess I'll say at this point. We're getting into some of the youth here, though. We got at 26, we got Brian Robinson. 25, we've got our first rookie that we're going to talk about on the show, Trey Benson. 24 is Tony Pollard, and then Alvin Kamara at 23, Brant.
Let's dive into
talk about the first. Let's talk about Pollard real quick. So Pollard, we've got a consensus 24. I've got him at 25. You're the lowest of all the Fantasy Hawks at 28. What scares you about Tony Pollard, Brant?
I'm not sold. Tajay Spears looked good at times last year. He's a great pass catching back. He Spears and Pollard, in my mind, have the same skill set, and they're both there. And then they added the undrafted rookie and Dylan Johnson, who could end up being the bruiser there in that backfield. Pollard just didn't cut the mustard when he was by himself in Dallas, and I just don't trust it. I think that it's going to be too much of a committee there, and I think that one could end up a three-headed monster, and I just don't trust any of them.
Okay. And then another discrepancy between yourself and myself, you've got Trey Benson 6 spots lower than I have him. I've got him at 27. You've got him at 21. Why are you so high on Trey Benson, Brant?
I think he comes in. He was my second favorite back in this draft. My favorite, I think, is still a little bit higher, possibly lower. Honestly, we'll get into that in a minute. I think that he instantly comes in. I think he takes over that workload there in Arizona. I could honestly see James Conner getting cut this year as a cap save. I think Trey Benson's going to be the guy there in that young offense. I know they have Kyler, but they added Marvin Harrison, Trey Benson, Troy McBride. I just think the offense is going young, and I think this is going to be their centerfold back for the foreseeable future.
Okay. Again, it is dynasty. Sometimes you got to be patient on it. Trey Benson may not have a ton of value super early, but he's going to get there, right, Brant? I mean, that's going to be an offense. It's going to be a lot of fun with Marvin Harrison, K1 still in town, Trey McBride. So yeah, that will be an exciting team to have fantasy wise at some point here in the not so distant future. 22, we have one of your running backs in Joe Mixon. David Montgomery, 20, the ageless wonder Derrick Henry, and at 19, Ramondre Stevenson, Brant. Let's see where the biggest discrepancy lies here between you and I. I guess you'd have to go down to Joe Mixon, who apparently I like more than you. I have him at 17. You have him at 23. I'm obviously much lower on him than everybody else in our consensus. Again, for me, a talented back, Joe Mixon, who I think has, we saw what was it last year or the year before, Brant? He went for like 60-some points in fantasy with his 5 touchdown performance or 4, whatever it was. We had a huge day and was a focal point of that offense. I think he's going to find himself as a focal point in the offense at Houston. The goal line work that he's going to have this year, I mean, you're talking about a Cincinnati team who underperformed last year with injuries to their quarterback, to some of the skill position players. And now you're going to the up-and-comings Houston Texans with a wonderful offensive coordinator and Bobby Slowick. DeMeco Ryans is on the come-up as a head coach. Love what we're seeing out of him. C.J. Stroud's great. And then they just added more weapons to the offense, in Joe Mixon and then Stephon Diggs, Brant. And I just think that because of additions like that, Joe Mixon's going to be in line for more touchdowns than he's ever seen in his career. Right? The early value is great. I think he's got 2 or 3 years of pretty good production still in the tank.
Yeah, I think he still has, as you see, I have him at 23. I think he's right there at the running back 2 range. For the foreseeable future, he did get into a young team. And I said, you and me were talking about this when we did our free agency. Texans add a veteran running back, and that guy's going to be huge in that offense because Pierce just couldn't cut it with Singletary there, and now you're getting someone in with more talent than Singletary. I absolutely do love Joe Mixon. I just don't know if he is middle RB2 or if he's going to be middle and down with his age there.
Okay. No, and I think that's a completely fair assessment. It'll be one of those things where we have to wait and see. All right, here we go, Brant. I know this is the guy you really wanted to talk about. You said he's your favorite rookie. Jonathan Brooks at 18, Najee Harris at 17, Javonte Williams at 16. So let's start with Jonathan Brooks here, Brant. Why do you think, you and I are spot on. We both have him at 16 there. Why do you think he could be an RB2 this year?
I think he's going to come out
or moving forward.
This year may be a little rough as he's coming back from injury. They may not want to put him in. But this guy is young. He's one of the younger running backs in this draft. He's going to a great offense where there's nothing established there. We thought the Miles Sanders contract would have done it in for this team. This team is up and coming. They rebuilt the line. I absolutely love everything they have done for Brooks. And I think that we may have to wait till midseason this year, but I think he is poised to explode with that offense.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're going to have to be a little bit patient with Jonathan Brooks, especially in year one, Brand. I think maybe around the bye week for the Panthers this year, we start to see him get more and more involved. But Dave Canales, the new head coach for the Carolina Panthers, has come out and already said, we're going to be committed to the run. We're going to use the run to help Bryce Young improve. And he's made several comments about how much he likes Miles Sanders, Chuba Hubbard, and now Jonathan Brooks. He said it was one of those spots where you're like, hey, you're staring him down. We traded up to go get him. We know what he is. Really, realistically, next year, you're talking about a Miles Sanders contract that's pretty darn easy to walk away from this upcoming offseason. Chuba Hubbard's in a contract year, Brant. So Jonathan Brooks could be the guy full time next year in Carolina. This has been really, really growing to, and I think I'm going to attach myself to in several different places this offseason. I think this guy could be in line for league-winning back stuff second half of the season, Brant. The other one I want to talk about here is Najee Harris. So we have Najee Harris at 17. And again, you can see you and I are a little higher on Najee. We're a little more bullish than everybody else is. We just talked about his counterpart in Jalen Warren. They're both inside the top 30 backs, Brant. Why? What is it about Pittsburgh or what is it about these two backs that we could see both these guys being relevant?
Pittsburgh's always been known to pound the ball, just pound the ball. Then they go and get Arthur Smith, who wants to run the ball. They got two great guys there. They got two quarterbacks that we all have question marks for. I just think that they're going to lean on these two running backs like the old Pittsburgh Steelers have, and I think they're just going to pound the rock a lot. And I think Najee's going to be a huge beneficiary of the added offensive linemen in this offseason.
Are you at all worried with this offense in particular, with having these two running backs both listed this high, that this may be one of those situations where 1 week it's Najee, the next week it's Warren, or maybe 2 weeks in a row it's Najee, and then that third week is Warren, where it really pulls the wool over our eyes as Najee owners. We start getting comfortable starting him, and then he comes out and puts a dud up because Warren has a game. Or in reverse hindsight, you start sitting Warren because you're not getting the production, and all of a sudden he explodes on your bench. Are you worried about that at all?
I'm actually not, and here's why. Najee didn't pick up the fifth-year option. Jalen Warren, undrafted free agent. His contract is up. They both have something to prove. They both are going to want paid this offseason or during the season. I think they're both going to be very, very valuable. And I don't know if they're going to even have that opportunity to really ride the hot hand, because I think that they're both going to be out there running with some meaning this year.
Okay. And then last but not least, that Javonte Williams, I've got him, outside the top 20, whereas everybody else here does. I'm just a little bit nervous about how Sean Payton may or may not feel about him personally. Do you think Javonte bounces back this season, Brant?
So Javonte Williams was a guy I struggled to rank here, and I'll say it. I put him there at 17 because of his age and possibly his workhorse or his usage. Workload. Thank you. So, but he's still a question mark in my mind. This is a guy that I think is going to slide down my rankings as I look deeper and deeper into this backfield. You and me have already started discussing this backfield, and I haven't gone back into it to update it yet. But Javonte Williams is a guy that there's so many question marks around it. I don't even know if I'm comfortable with drafting him right there. I do like him still, but this coaching staff has no ties to him whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. Sure, absolutely. All right. Running back 15, we had Josh Jacobs, 14, DeAndre Swift, 13, Devon A-Chain, and then to start our top 12 here, we have James Cook, Brant. So I'm looking at these here, and there's just a couple that we're you and I are flip-flopped on Swift and Jacobs. You have one of them at 18, I have the other, and one of us has them at 13 and the other. So we're kind of par for the course on those two there, not really a huge difference. As in we both think they're top 20 backs. The Devon A-Chain one's interesting to me. You have him at 15. The other guys have him at 11, 12, and 11. I have him all the way down at 20. So I'm obviously a little less confident in A-Chain than the rest of you guys. You're still a little less or I'll say you're cautiously optimistic compared to the rest of the team. What does it take for Devon A-Chain to be a top 12 running back this year, Brant?
Raheem Mostert injury would be to be for this year. A-Chain's a guy that it only takes a couple carries for him to be relevant in fantasy. And he should see that every week. So he has that opportunity every week. That's why I have him there at 15. I like him at the certain ADP level where I would draft him. But he's a guy that only is going to need a few carries. I still think it's Mostert's backfield for at least this year, possibly next year. But it's definitely A-Chain, and Wright will be coming up to probably split that. But like I said, A-Chain only needs 5 touches to score 20 fantasy points.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. But I think when you only talk about 5 touches, sometimes maybe that leaves a little high and dry. I think if it was a situation, Brant, where he was getting 15 carries a game and I knew that was going to happen, I think I'd have him much higher with the rest of you guys. So there we have that. James Cook, like I said, for the most part, we all had him inside the top 12. So no huge craziness there. Number 11, Saquon Barkley. Number 10, Isaiah Pacheco. Number 9, Rachaad White, Brant. So again, looking at these here, not anything super crazy. Rachaad White, you have at 6. Talk me through Rachaad White. What's the thought process on him being so high?
He'd be a top 5 back. I know I have him right outside, but he'd be a top 5 back if I trusted his workload. But they're talking about wanting to lower it down and don't want to give him as much usage. So he scares me a little bit, but I like him as a back. The team seems to really like him. So I think that they're going to still lean on him. Baker's still the quarterback, so they're not going to ask him to air it out 50 times a game. So I think White has good path to some work and continue high usage.
Okay, let's talk about Saquon Barkley for a minute too, Brant, because I think it's interesting as you go through and look at this. That's a name that is now for us. We have him at running back 11 as the Fantasy Holics rankers. This is a guy that just even a year or two back in startup rankings was probably top 3 running back off the board. What was the descent from greatness for him in your eyes that you think kind of led him to fall outside of the top 3 or 4 or all the way down to 11, I guess, at this point?
Well, injury passed. He's going to Philly where he obviously has to compete with Jalen Hurts on the goal line. And age, and he suffers one more injury. We don't know when he'll be coming back. So, or if he will actually come back. So I think that's how it has a lot to do with it.
Is it just a New York Giants curse? Like OBJ had the one catch we all refer to him as, right? And then all of a sudden we all want to take turns owning him as he signs with a new team. He starts putting up numbers. I don't know. I feel like maybe we're a little disrespectful to Saquon Barkley because, yes, you're right. He does have to compete more. It's not going to be so much as the entire focus of the offense. Good for his running lanes, right? His touchdown should probably potentially increase because instead of just stacking the box, where's 26 at when you're playing the New York Football Giants? Now you got to worry about number 1, number 11 on the sidelines, number 6. There's a lot more for opposing teams to worry about here. So is it possible Saquon has a career resurgence in Philly, or are we thinking this is probably where he's at from now on is around that 10 number?
He could absolutely have a resurgence this year in Philly. He is behind probably the best line he's ever had. So, I mean, yeah, you could see him finish a top 5 back this year, but the age is what scares me off from wanting to hold on to him for too long. If I'm going into this startup going for a championship this year, I have Saquon Barkley a little bit higher in my rankings.
Okay. All right. Moving on. Number 8, Kenneth Walker. Number 7, Kyren Williams. Number 6, Travis Etienne. And then number 5, Jonathan Taylor. I think the biggest discrepancy here probably is I'm obviously a lot of Kyren Williams, which I didn't even know I was, Brand. I didn't know I was that high on Kyren Williams. I have him all the way up at 6. I think I'm the highest. No, there is another ranker there that has him at 6. Derek does as well. So maybe I guess I'm not that high. It just feels high. I don't love Kyren Williams. I don't know how I got him up that high, but there he is, Brant.
Well, this is funny to me because we discussed this at the draft when Corum was during the draft when Corum was drafted, that you thought he'd work more into Kenneth or Kyron Williams' load than I did. I'm just not sold on him being 100% the go-to back. I know I was, and I don't think Blake Corum for the first year really cuts into a whole lot. Yeah, they're going to take away his usage. What was it, like 93% of running back touches were Kyron Williams last year? I don't see him doing that again. I think he's still going to be valuable in the passing game because if you think outside of Cooper Kupp and Puka Nakua, who's really catching the ball? Well, Kyron Williams does a good job with it. I know they added Colby Parkinson and a few other guys, but I like Kyron Williams still to be the focal point of this running offense.
Okay. All right. There's one thing I want to talk about. Well, let's talk about Travis Etienne first of all, because you and I really spent some time talking about this a little bit in person as well. That the efficiency wasn't really great for Travis Etienne down the stretch last year, Brant. So are you kind of taking, think maybe there's a bounce back for him with an improved offense in Jacksonville, or do you think that maybe this time next year we're talking about him around the running back 15 mark instead of the top 10 here?
So I ranked him as if Doug Peterson said he wanted him to get less usage. So I'm hoping the efficiency that he had at the beginning of the year can stretch the whole year if they're cutting down on some of his workload. So that's where my hope is, and I think it's very possible that if they do cut it down, last year was, he came back from injury. And so I like Etienne. I think he's still going to be around that top 12 range when it comes to this time next year as well.
Okay. All right. I can get on board with that. All right. Let's go through the top 4 here. We've got number 4, Christian McCaffrey, finally displaced, not the RB1 anymore. Number 3, Breece Hall. Number 2, Jahmyr Gibbs. And number 1, Bijan Robinson. Brant, you and I were unanimous with Jahmyr and Bijan. We both have them neck and neck. And then you were a little lower on Breece Hall. Not a lot, not disrespectful at all, but you just had him at 5. Why not top 3 for Breece Hall in your mind, Brant?
The addition of the youngest running back in this draft scares me just a little bit. Off of him, I think Allen could definitely have a part in this offense. Then he's going to get Rodgers back, who's going to air it out. They added they had Garrett Wilson. They added Mike Williams, and they added, who else did they add? Help me out here.
What is it? Malachi
Yes. So
Corley.
I think that they're really going to open up the air raid, open up the passing a little bit with Rodgers back. So less workload. I think this is the next 2 to 3 years that you're going to see them kind of lower that workload for Breece Hall and try to keep him healthy. I still think he's a top 5 back every single year. It's just I just struggle to see the consistency because I think Allen's going to have a lot of actual work because I think the Jets are going to lead in some games and they're going to be like, all right, fourth quarter, Breece Hall, it's time for you to sit. We're going to let Allen get some work and salt this game away because we're up by 2-3 touchdowns. So we're going to let the big guy bruise this game away.
Okay. That's, again, I can relate, or not relate, but understand where you're coming. I can be with you because I do agree that I think if Aaron Rodgers stays healthy and plays more than 4 minutes of football for the Jets, obviously their offense is a lot better. They will win some games, or they're kind of walking away from it, or in the middle of the fourth quarter, if you will. So I'm going to put you on the spot here real quick, Brant. I know there's one big discrepancy a little lower in the rankings that we got to talk about. But before we do that, what's one running back? Well, actually, not one. Who in your mind is RB1 this year?
Oh, Christian McCaffrey again. I think he repeats. I think if you're talking RB1 this year, Christian McCaffrey repeats.
Okay. I'm going to say Jonathan Taylor reclaims his glory. I think the Indianapolis Colts offense takes a step forward. Anthony Richardson stays healthy, and you see a massive season from Jonathan Taylor. One other quick question, Brant. Which of these running backs that we have in the Fantasy Holics ranked in the top 10 do you think could fall out and fall out hard? I'm talking outside of RB2 range even.
This one's going to pain me to say. Kenneth Walker. I think you could see that back go to a 50-50 split, new coaching staff. I think him and Charbonnet could really go into a split. And you could also see McIntosh get some work in. So I think Kenneth Walker could be a guy that could be sliding by the end of this year.
I'm going to say, although I have him ranked a little higher than you, and I don't necessarily love him, Kyron Williams, the reports coming out about his foot injury in the offseason that we've just recently got, the fact that I think there's some truth to the fact that maybe the Rams didn't necessarily view him as a workhorse running back. They kind of got forced into that last year. That now they go out and make Blake Corum a priority in this draft. I think there's a chance you may see a little more of Corum than people are expecting. And I think Kyron Williams, if he's not getting that big of a workload, he may fall backwards a little bit, Brant. So we shall see. All right, I'm going to try my best because this screen gets really small for me when I go over here and scroll to this. I'm going to see if I can't get this on the screen here. A big discrepancy is, and if you see it before I do, Brant, you make sure to stop me.
It's running back 51. It's not even on there.
Okay. Well, yep. Okay. So it's running back 51. The other half of it's still on there, though. So it's running back 51 and running back 31 or 38. That might be 38.
Yeah.
So it's the Chargers' backfield, though, Brant. So we've got Gus Edwards, who, as you can see, did make the running back rankings here, the consensus. I have him at 36. You have him at 42. And then you're looking at the rankings that aren't published. And it has J.K. Dobbins. Where does it have him, Brant, at 51?
51. I have him at 27. You have him at 49. We have one guy that has him at 81. So not a whole lot of truthers. I believe in J.K. He's got new scenery. He's got a backfield that knows there. He's got a coach that knows him, that's seen him play. I think that J.K. Dobbins could take over this backfield. And I really do believe that he could end up, if you want my guy that's going to end up in the top 24 this year, this is one of my names is J.K. Dobbins.
Okay, so that's really interesting. So as a rookie, Brant, in PPR, he did finish inside of top 27. That's the only time in his career he's done it, was his rookie season. He's only played in 24 total games in his career. The fact that this man is made of glass, I don't know if I feel comfortable having him at 49, especially with as much as I'm starting to fall in love with Keami Vidal there, that was selected out of Troy. But you and I did just take over an orphan dynasty team, and J.K. is probably our third best running back on the roster, and it's not real pretty at this point. So I'm hoping you're right on this one, Brant. I just don't know as though I see it. And on the opposite side of this, you do have Gus Edwards coming off of a massive season. I think he had somewhere in the neighborhood of like 20 touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken. And he was added this offseason, if I'm not mistaken, before J.K. Dobbins in LA. I could be way off on that, but I know you and I have had this conversation a couple of times. You're hoping that getting some of these Ravens running backs away from the turf in Baltimore really adds some spring into some of those legs and makes them a little fresh. And again, you've been the biggest J.K. Dobbins truther I know, because you were high on him for quite a while, and he's not rewarded your faith at all. And here you are still going with him and still rolling with him. So I hope for your sake this year it comes true, Brant, and for our sake and our nasty rebuild that you and I are trying to navigate through here.
Absolutely. I think getting away from that turf, we've seen so many injuries to running backs on that turf in Baltimore. So I like him. And his skill set, he was the second back drafted in that rookie class. So I really do believe that this is going to be the bounce back year for him.
Do you remember that rookie class, Brant? That was the year we had DeAndre Swift go, we had Jonathan Taylor go, and then we had that atrocity happen in the first round.
Yes.
That atrocity that happened in the first round has finished higher than J.K. Dobbins every year of their career so far in fantasy.
But he still isn't on the rankings.
I can't get there with you. So anyway, I think this wraps it up for us this week on the running backs. I know next week we will come back and do the wide receivers, which is a lot more fun. There'll probably be some bigger discrepancies in our rankings and probably some more candid responses to some of these differences, Brant. Being a part of this rankings team is a lot of fun because it makes you and I's work for this podcast very, very easy because we just go to the website, which is again, fantasyholics.com. We can pull it up, see who's ranking who where, say, hey, man, that beefing guy, he's just a turd. What's he doing with Kyron Williams at 6? Or whoever this walking out guy isn't real intelligent. He's got J.K. Dobbins at 27. So you, as the fans, can get on there and judge the crap out of us. But again, if you're going to come out there and judge us, I want you to get on the Facebook page and I want you to get active so you can get a chance to come play with us and put your money where your mouth is and see if you can beat the two fat boys.
That's right. I'll be owning J.K. Dobbins in that league.
You can get him off waivers after week 1. Nobody else wants him. Probably Rashad Bateman, too, who you also are infatuated with. That's a story for next week's episode, Brent. We'll talk about that then. I think that does it for us on this week's episode. So, Brent, if you want to hit us with the sign off here.
As always, stay hungry.
Stay fat, my friends.